Hello, I'm Adam J. Morgan and welcome to Late Night Ghost Stories. Today I have a very special guest talking to John West. He's a film producer, actor, broadcaster and author of several books on history, crime and a subject we are all very fascinated by, ghosts and folklore. So going back to the ghosts, what are people seeing? Is it the victims' ghosts that people are seeing?
Nowadays, people don't claim to have seen much. It's like it's wound down, like a recording that's sort of worn out. They get funny. People, I've spoken to people who say they still get a funny feeling when they know they're walking over that spot. I know that could be subjective. They know a murder was committed there, so you've always got to remember that. But what it was, I mean, with the Annie Chapman murder, people used to see a woman matching her description with a man walking along the street and disappearing into that alley, it wasn't an alley, it was a corridor that led into the backyard. So
that was Hanbury Street, wasn't it? Hanbury Street.
That's it, yeah. That was they were seen several times. Mitre Square, people claim to have seen not Jack, but the figure of the woman lying on the ground in the spot where she was murdered, and that was seen as late as the early 70s. Peter Underwood wrote about it, that a couple went into the yard and saw the square rather, and saw this figure lying on the floor, and they went to go over and help her, and then these youths rushed into the square and they backed off because they thought, this could be turned nasty, and the youths were playing in the area where she was lying and she'd vanished.
Wow.
She'd been seen by other people, including, I think, a relative of Elliot O'Donnell's. So she'd haunted that square, but only her. But they've entirely altered the square now, so they've probably erased that haunting. I haven't spoken to anyone who's seen it for years. And Elizabeth Stride, that area is supposed to be haunted. People claim to have heard sounds of struggling and gasping. The first murder as well, which was Polly Nichols. People said that they'd seen a figure lying on the ground, and it was with a glowing light. And so there's various. And Mary Kelly's room was supposed to be haunted as well. It was supposed to be a bloody handprint that no one could remove. They tried to scrub it off, and it would always come back.
So was that must have
demolished.
Yeah, that's demolished, and I think it's a supermarket now, if I remember correctly.
I think it was a car park or something. It wasn't Annie Chapman's. Anyway, there was some building there, but people claim that place is still haunted, especially around about the anniversary of the murders. I think it gets cold and there's noises and stuff. But yeah, Miller's Court went up, was demolished years and years ago. But yeah, that was supposed to be badly haunted, the room, and people would never stay there.
Wow.
And the gravesite as well is supposed to be haunted, Mary Kelly's gravesite. I can't remember the name of the cemetery, but people have claimed to have gone there and felt a presence. Although again, we've got to obviously take it on board that it's, they know that that's the Ripper's victims. They might be expecting something to happen.
But that would make sense actually with Mary Jane Kelly, because I don't believe anyone attended her funeral because they couldn't locate her family, despite the press at the time putting out announcements. Yeah. But she didn't help herself, because we don't even know if that's her name. So Mary Jane Kelly used to like to fabricate her life, and one minute she was born in Cardiff, the next she lived in France, and even her actual name is not supposed to be genuine, and that's why they struggle to find family. Because if you're putting something in the press to say Mary Jane Kelly has been murdered and died, and trying to reach out to family, if it's a made-up name, you got no chance.
Exactly. I mean, there's many theories that she came from Ireland, she came from Wales, she supposedly went to France as a high-class prostitute, came back, that was then in the West End, and then things happened and she ended up in the East End. But yeah, we'll never know for certain. But yeah, no members of her family were ever found. And I know, I mean, Stuart Evans did a lot of research into this. No one's ever been able to track. There's various theories. They found like people called Kelly. It could be a family, but we don't know. We're just relying on what she told people in the East End. And as you rightly pointed out, she could have made that up.
Yeah, that's the problem. And moving on to something else, actually, you touched on it briefly when you mentioned a battlefield earlier in the conversation. I remember a case where there was, and I don't know where it is, you can probably help me with this one, someone walking their dogs over like fields or old common land and stuff, and could hear, not see, but they could hear audio of like swords clanking together and things. Do you know what I'm talking about with that one? Is it?
That's probably Marston Moor, because on the I can't remember the month the battle was for, but it was 1644, if memory serves. Round about the anniversary of the battle, people claim to hear the sounds of battle, guns being fired, swords, and again, when I was doing research into the ghosts in that area, locals do avoid that area around about the anniversary of the battle because they claim to have seen figures as well. I think years ago there was a chap driving his car down a lane, and he saw these figures staggering along the side of the road dressed in Civil War uniform, and he thought they were reenactors until they vanished. So that's probably the battle. But there's quite a few battle sites that are supposed to be haunted. Edge Hill is still haunted. They actually saw, this was just after the battle, it was 1642, was the first major battle in the English Civil War, and they saw the battle being fought in the sky, although including people that he knew still to be alive. So that was obviously recording, and Charles I actually sent people to look into it, and they saw the battle too. So it's officially investigated. The government at the time investigated that battle, but it's still supposedly haunted. People have gone there and heard the sounds of battle. They've never seen the battles being fought in the sky. Because imagine getting a picture of that or film of it. I mean, that'd be conclusive proof then to the skeptics. But yeah, battlefields are very haunted. And again, the emotions generated, people dying, and I'm not surprised. But there again, you can go to some battle sites. I mean, there's one Gainsborough, which is sadly built on now. I did a book on the Battle of Gainsborough. No ghost stories connected with the battle at all. I spoke to people who lived near there. You never seen, heard anything, absolutely nothing.
And you mentioned time slips earlier as well, which is another thing that absolutely fascinates me. There was the Bold Street in Liverpool, wasn't it? A very famous.
Oh yes, I remember that. Yeah, we went back to the 50s or the 60s.
What's your thoughts on that? What do you think's happening? Is that people in their imagination? Is that actually possible to slip back into time?
Well, I had a time. Well, Jason Figgis had a couple of time slips when he went to Avebury. He bumped into people that seemed to be wearing sort of clothing from a different time. And in Ireland, I think it was, he asked for directions to a cottage, and they were all wearing old-fashioned clothing. And when they referred to a place that burnt down only a few years before, and it'd been like decades before, I had a time slip experience. I went to Hereford, another spectacular one, Greyfriars Priory, and for a brief instant, all the modern sounds faded away, and the building started to, in my mind's eye, started to become whole again. And I got a bit worried, and I thought, God, if this happens, I'm going to end up back in the medieval period. So I will, for want of a better term, I willed myself back in the modern age, and it went. I mean, that's not very spectacular, my one, but and people say, he could have imagined it. But definitely the modern sounds started to fade away, children playing, the cars. I mean, Einstein said that time wasn't really how we knew it, and I think the past, present and future perhaps are running along parallel lines. So I think there is potential that we briefly interact with the past and the future. I mean, UFOs could be craft from our future. Who knows? Time travelers from our future. But yeah, I definitely think there's something to time slips.
Have you got any plans to bring out a book on time slips? I mean,
I haven't. I did a chapter on a time slip case in Suffolk, Kersey, where some boys in the 50s went back. Well, they went to a village and it looked deserted, and there was no modern cars there, wires or anything, and like they saw rotting meat hanging from a butcher's shop, and it was like they'd gone back to like the plague had decimated this village. So I've done a chapter on time slips in that. My last book, Britain's Haunted Land, I do have a chapter on sort of short stories connected with time slips. So it might be something I might do in the future, a book on time slips. But I have covered it in a couple of my ghost books, but just chapters.
Yeah, and one of my favourite episodes, like if you remember Strange But True, that used to be on TV in the 90s.
Oh, Michael Aspel, I love that.
It was fantastic, and I just wish they would have brought it back or done more, because I don't know if it just ran out of mileage and the viewing figures dropped perhaps, I'm not sure, but I think they did 4 or 5 series. But
They did. Some of them are on YouTube, but not compared. The only odd show. I was hoping Network would bring them out, but obviously Network went under, so we never see them on Network.
I emailed Network and I suggested it, and I've done something on Facebook at the time and said anyone who wants to have this show, and lots of people were commenting saying I'd love to see it back, and I sent screenshots. He said, "Oh, thank you very much. I'll have a chat with the powers that be." A couple of weeks went by and I emailed again. He said, "Yeah, unfortunately, we've decided not to sort of release it at this time." They said, but obviously the Network's finished now. I think. Did you?
Yeah, sadly.
Yeah, they brought out some fantastic stuff.
Oh, they did. Another good series as well, which I was hoping was going to come out, and I think all the surviving episodes are on YouTube. Leap in the Dark was a paranormal series. Colin Wilson presented some of them, and I was a producer on a series about Colin Wilson, and I co-wrote one of the episodes. That's an excellent series to watch. Sadly, some of the episodes are wiped, but he did a really good one about the murderous vicar of Wapping, which was actually not a true ghost story. Funny enough, I've been to that area and people swear blind that they've seen that vicar, and that ghost story was in circulation before Colin Wilson did his program. But that was a fantastic series, Leap in the Dark, the ones he did. And there was a series in the 90s called Ghost Hunters, nothing connected with the American series. That came out on DVD actually, and Castle Ghosts of England, Scotland, Wales and Ireland with Robert Hardy was another great series which came out on DVD. So if you're into ghost documentaries, you should check all of those out.
I mean, I'm so sad. I go on eBay to buy the old VHS tapes of paranormal stuff from like the 80s and 90s.
Yeah, you still got a VHS player?
Yeah, absolutely. For the reason that a lot of stuff like that never got transferred over to DVD or Blu-ray. And you look in the catalogue and it says not available. However, it did come out on VHS, so I ordered that and think, right, I'll have that. I just love it because it was before all the sort of big shows like Most Haunted and all that took off, and it was very just down to earth, just interviewing people, and the people were talking about their experiences, and sometimes you might have a bit of reconstruction, and that was it. That was all there was no investigation. It was just storytelling, which just fascinated me. So I still like watching those old tapes. I mean, going back to you mentioning like you lived in a haunted property, do you want to tell me a bit about that? Because I'm quite fascinated by that.
I mean, I lived in Lincolnshire at a time as well, and I used to hear a dog running up down the stairs and round my bed at some points, which is a bit scary. I got used to it. People think, how can you get used to it? But you do. But I moved to Saxmundham, which is a little market town in Suffolk, and I moved into a property which was basically being built before the English Civil War. And there was an odd feeling when I first went there, as if you're being watched, and things like I thought I put that cup over there, and it's suddenly over there, and odd noises. But then I was in bed one night, and the duvet got yanked off me, literally yanked off me, which did scare me. And it happened twice, and I did actually say, look, whoever you are, I don't mind sharing the place with you. Can you not do that again? And he never did. And I did see this figure out of the corner of my eye, and all I could see was obviously a woman, black sleeve and sort of lacy trim round the end of the sleeve, and looked Victorian to me. And apparently there's supposed to have been a woman died there or committed suicide. I was never able to actually get the evidence, so that was the story. And Jason Figgis, the film director, we were doing some stuff together. We did this film called The Ghost of Winifred Meeks, which is like M.R. James type thing. It was filmed in Dunwich, which is a lovely little town.
That was Lara Belmont.
That's it. Yeah, she was in Rise of the Foot Soldier and things like that, and I think she played Mary Tudor.
She's a really, really good actress. I first saw her years ago in The War Zone with Ray Winston.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that was her first big film. Yeah, she played I played the landlord. She played the woman that moved there, right? And my girlfriend at the time played the ghost, Julie Abbott. So I always throw this in as a joke. Probably people get bored of hearing it, but I say never date a ghost because it never works out.
Fantastic. Or not.
But anyway, the place in Saxmundham, Jason stayed there. He slept in the living room, and the same thing happened to him. The duvet got pulled off, but he felt his foot grabbed as well. So and when my mum died in 1983, we had poltergeist activity in the house after she died, scratching and things like that. And my brother heard her speak to him. So yes, I've had a few experiences, but that's the only apparition I've actually seen. But it was out of the corner of my eye, and it was only part of her.
Do you believe?
You get used to living in a haunted property. People think it's odd. But you do get, and the activity decreased over time as if she got used to me being there. I'd like to know what was happening there now, because I'm sure whoever's moved there has probably experienced stuff.
Do you believe people come back to, when we lose like a loved one, do you believe they're coming back to sort of say, look, I am, don't grieve, I am still alive, I'm in spirit? Is that what's happening exactly, do you think?
I think that can explain some ghost stories, that they come back just to sort of say their goodbyes or to keep an eye on you. Definitely. I mean, when my mum died, she was in hospital. Her sister was actually in the toilet, and there was no way she could have heard my mum call out. My mum was unconscious with morphine and that. She heard my mum call out her name, and she rushed out, and my uncle, her husband, was coming to tell her that my mum had passed away, and he said, "You know, don't you?" And she said, "Yeah, she just told me." Wow. She heard her voice, and she'd also seen my mum as well after, not long after she died. So yeah, I do think they hang around for a little bit to sort of see how you're getting on and that, and then move on. I think that is definitely one explanation, and then the grief lessens over time, and they're able to go on to wherever they've gone.
It really is fascinating. The whole what is a ghost kind of question. I think we could discuss that for hours, couldn't we, really?
Definitely.
Everyone's got a theory. There's books, there's documentaries, there's personal beliefs, there's religion that comes into play. It's really strange with paranormal stuff, because before I come on the show to talk to you, I said to my son Lucas about ghosts, and he said, the afterlife is the most mysterious thing ever, which I'm sure you agree with.
Oh, definitely. I mean, we all want to believe that there is an afterlife and our soul goes somewhere. Certainly the evidence I've come across would suggest that we do survive and we do go on to somewhere, whether you want to call it heaven or whatever. But I've often said to people, look, the only way we're really going to find out is when it's our own time. And then who knows, I might turn around and say, God, I was wrong all along. It was actually this.
Yeah.
But we'll never know. We'll never know until it's our time.
Why do you, sort of rounding it up a little bit now, but I'm thinking to myself, why do you think people aren't seeing, with CCTV and mobile phones, why are we not seeing definitive answers on that? Why are we not seeing ghosts manifesting in front of us with all the recording and photography we've got nowadays?
Well, yeah, that is a good point. I mean, one, ghosts don't appear on demand. I often say that to people when they go on a ghost hunt. Don't expect that you're going to see a load of ghosts because they might not turn up. Yeah, I mean, I've seen some impressive footage on digital cameras and film and stuff that I can't explain. But the problem is, obviously, you can manipulate that, whereas perhaps in the past you couldn't manipulate sort of, old-style photographs in the way you could on a computer, with modern technology and that. I mean, perhaps it's just that, the old-style cameras, they could capture that image in a way that modern film can't. It's a hard thing to explain, but certainly, I mean, I know there's whole documentaries out there, of modern footage of ghosts. And as I said, some of it is very impressive. But yeah, you're quite right. I mean, I know people get orbs and that all the time on their cameras, but I'm a little bit skeptical of that for the simple reason that, if dust particles in the air can pick up the light and, even water droplets, and it looks like orbs. So I'm not always convinced by that evidence. But yeah, perhaps it's just the way cameras are now in film that the ghosts are not being registered on there for some reason. Yeah, it's a hard one actually. But again, as I said, there is some footage out there that does, modern footage that has got stuff on there that I can't explain. Like apparitions, figures of Bigfoot and things like that.
Wow. And just before we go, you mentioned your Jack the Ripper documentary. Is it too early for you to say when it's going to potentially be available and where we can watch this?
Hopefully it will be done this year. I wouldn't like to put hand on heart and say that, but it definitely will be made. And Michael Hawley will be involved in it, the Jack the Ripper expert from America. I'll obviously be involved in it, writing a bit of it and stuff. And so hopefully this year. And I'm also working on a documentary on poltergeists. I've actually finished the narration for it, so that should be out this year as well.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Perhaps I can come back on your show and talk about poltergeists and other songs. That's a whole subject in itself.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be fantastic. John, it's been amazing talking to you, and thank you for giving up your time. I'm sure.
Oh, my pleasure. I really enjoyed it. Great to talk with you as well.
I was going to say, I'm sure everyone else has really enjoyed listening to this one. So if people want to comment and share and support us, that would be fantastic. So, John, thank you again. It's been amazing.
Thank you.
Take care.
Brilliant. Thank you. And you. Take care.
Bye.